Good morning and welcome back to Planner Craft. I'm Natalie and today we're going to be finishing off the vinyl session that we had last week. So if you didn't watch last week, do go back and watch the first part where we created our mug, and we also did a bauble design as well. So I'm just going to wait for a few moments for everybody to find me. Do pop a hi in the comments as soon as you join in, just so I know that everybody's watching and can see the stream. So today we're going to be focusing on our side plate. It's a bit too big for a saucer, and we are going to be creating a design that's going to go round the outside, and we're going to be using the new Affinity Designer V2 software, so I can show you some of the cool things that we can do with that. So good morning, Deb. And I'll just wait for a few more to join before I say, have you spotted what's in the corner? So don't be afraid, say hi and let me know that you're watching. So down there in the bottom right, you can see that there is a new code for you to have a 10% discount when you are shopping with Craft Store Direct, and that's Planner Craft 10, all caps, no spaces. And that's going to entitle you to 10% off both machines, consumables, accessories. The only thing that you can't use it on is anything that is in the clearance section. Oh, sorry. Oh, hang on. Let me read it all the way through now. There we go. So, just back from having flu and COVID jabs. The jabs is the important bit of that, I was going to say. So, Carol, I can't remember if you saw last week or not. But if you didn't see last week, what we did was we showed you how we can adapt a design to go onto a curved surface. And at the time, I said that you couldn't use Affinity to do it. And at the same time, over on the Affinity page, they launched V2, which can. So I thought, given that we didn't get a chance to finish off the plate, it would be a good opportunity to go over some of the new bits and pieces. Now what I will say is, when I'm on display, I'm not going to necessarily be able to see all of your comments, particularly those on Facebook. I think I'm going to struggle to see. So do bear with. I will answer your questions as soon as I come back. So Streamlabs will carry on gathering up all your comments, and then I can answer those. Just do be aware that when you're phrasing your question, make it absolutely clear what feature you are referencing, just so that I know, because otherwise it could be 10 minutes down the line and I won't have a clue. So the other thing to say is Ian's not here at the moment. He's currently in the other room having an interview, so I'm going to try and be quiet. So we'll see how we go. So I'm going to hop across to Designer 2. Let's pop that up on display and hopefully you can hear me okay. Now I'm going to flick across to chat. And if you're on YouTube, yep, discount code. Yeah, the discount code is there, so it's Planner Craft 10, all caps, no space. And that's also going to help support us a little too. So, welcome to Affinity Designer version 2. So when I'm going to be talking about this generally in posts and things, you're just going to find that I'm going to shorten that to Affinity V2. Because they are very much a suite and they work as a trio. So when I did an install on the MacBook, basically it just loaded on and it didn't reference anything that was in my first version. And to be entirely different, on the Mac here, it's already pulled through all of my presets from version 1, which is brilliant. What you're also going to find is that now presets are going to talk to each other. So if I was to open a new document in Affinity Publisher 2, I'm going to be able to do that for Scan and Cut, which is mad. If I open Affinity Photo 2, I'm going to be able to design for the Scan and Cut. So it's very much that everything is going to work, and it's going to be a lot more of a flow between the workflow. So we have a My Presets section, and that's just where it's pulled it through from version 1. But we have the ability to actually start new sections. So if you want to have a section that is literally just for Scan and Cut, you can do. And we can go, okay, that's a Scan and Cut one, let's drop it in there. And the other thing you're going to find a lot easier is the ability to just drag and drop. So I can put everything that's exclusive to the Scan and Cut into the Scan and Cut folder, like so. Okay, and let's choose a matte. Now, this is the really important bit for your first document when you want to export it to Scan and Cut. Make sure for your very first document you have it at the right DPI for your machine. So silhouettes and crickets, start one that is 72 DPI and go from there. Really important, because when we come to do our export setting at the other end, if that is set to 300, even if you type in 96, it's going to save it to 300, and then you end up having to delete the preset and redo it. So that's one of the first things I found with the software. So let's create that matte. Okay, so I'm just going to pop back overhead. So what we need to do next is we need to actually measure our plate. So, one moment. You're now the proud owner of 5 mugs, some new vinyl. I'm going to go over last week's show to design 5 mugs. For her who must be obeyed. Bet you can't guess who. I reckon it's probably Lily. I don't think it's me. There's only Ian that refers to me with that kind of kind of language. Oh, that would be good if you missed us there. I am starting to pop up events for streams as well. So do just hop on those and say that you're coming, and you should, very big should there, should get a notification. So I'm going to use my T-ruler, and I've actually angled this over the edge of my plate, because measuring diameter on a circle can be a bit tricky. So if I follow that edge there, we can see that our right hand measurement is going to change, and you want it where it's biggest. So in this case it's just shy of 8¼ inches. So let's see if I can make it a bit easier with centimeters. Okay, so 20.8 centimeters. So I'm going to go back to Affinity, and let's create a circle. So the shape tools are pretty much the same, you're going to be glad to know. I'm just going to draw in a circle, and down in the transform we can just put in our 208 millimeters. Come on, don't be. There we go, 208. So there's our circle. So that's our plate that we're going to be wanting to use. And it's a good idea to have that kind of there as both a reference point, but later on you can also use that as your weeding box. So let's start off by creating a bit of a pattern. So first of all, what I'm going to do is let's go to a square star tool, and this is going to give us a really basic snowflake. So let's put our sides up to 6 and we can bring that in. Now if we press and hold shift, that's going to keep it nice and even, but just because I haven't got a lot of room on my desk I'm just going to do it by eye. Now as always with our shape tools, you can see that there's going to be at least one little red dot that we can adapt to what we want. So I'm going to bring that right down here. And I'm not worried about the scale at this particular moment in time. So there's the start of our snowflake. So let's bring that down just a bit more. So I'm going to use that as a guide. So let's pop a different colour into it. And right, first thing that we're going to show you that's changed is at the moment we've got the triangle option. You can actually change that to a square. So just some of the features you're going to find have changed slightly, but others are going to stay the same. So it's really up to you, whichever you find easiest for you to use. So I'm going to go and pop that into the blue end of the spectrum so that we've got it nice and bold, and then we can start to create elements on that. So I'm going to go back to my shape tool and let's put a triangle, and I'm just going to draw that out, and I'm going to bring that over onto my snowflake like so. So let's just bring my keyboard back in. I'll move my side plate out of the way so that I can have a bit of room. I'm going to drag a copy, so that's hold the Alt key, click and drag, and then we can have a bit of detail there. So far so good. Okay, and let's put a little bit of detail in towards the centre. So I'm going to pop in a thin rectangle, and I'm going to rotate it so that it's going to match that angle there, and we'll pop it about there. So far so good. So now we can take all those elements that we've created apart from our circle. So let's hide our circle for the moment. We don't need it. So I'm going to select all of those and we can weld it. Okay, so how are we going to get all those shapes even all around this edge here? And the easiest way is to use symbols. So in another change, you're going to find that your Windows menu looks slightly different, in that instead of going into Studio then across and finding the symbols in there, you're just going to have that instant access to it, and we can just go and pop that open. With that selected, we can go to create, and that is going to add our symbol like so. So now we can pop in as many copies of that as we want. So in this case we are going to need 5 more copies because we need 5 more legs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the original makes it 6. So far so good. We're going to select all of those, and we're going to go into a line, and we're going to align to centre and centre so that we know that everything is all located correctly, and just apply that. So far so good. Click off it because now we're going to edit it one symbol at a time. So when we rotate, it's going to go from that center point anyway. And I'm just going to rotate that round to the point where it lines up with our symbol. Now you're going to spot that as we do that, it's going to be slightly off. And that's because when we do our line, our little arrows at the end are going to throw it off just very slightly. So let's get those where they need to go. And if you want to be a bit of a perfectionist like me, you can nudge it all day long until you get it where you want it to. So with that done, we can still lock. Just make sure that you have the item selected when you do. So whereas before we could just click the little lock symbol, we want to have it selected. Okay. Next one, I'm going to take it round this way and move that down there. Okay. And we're getting there for what I need, so we'll just lock that one. And we can go to the next symbol. Let's take this one this way. So at the moment you're thinking, well, okay, but that's not going to look perfect when it's all done. And what I would say is, don't worry about it at this point because it's a symbol, we can edit it. So I'm going to rotate that one down there, drop it down, tweak that angle. So all I'm looking at is this leg here. So if I think, oh, that's not quite in the right place, let's move it. Okay, and then lock it in place. And finally spin this one round, find the leg, there it is. And move that down there. So if we look in the centre here, you should have something that's pretty equal. And I'm going to lock that one too. Now if I drop down this symbol, we can see in here that we've still got access to our original curve. And if I go A to open my node, let me just check that hasn't interfered with anything on Streamlabs, we can actually delete the information that we don't need. So we don't need that leg there, don't need that leg there, don't need that leg there, we don't need that one there, and we don't need that one there. And suddenly our snowflake looks a lot cleaner. And there you go, we have a snowflake. But it's looking a little boring to say the least. So what I'm going to do is, let's unlock these layers first. Select all those symbols, go to the symbol palette and we're going to go detach. And it's going to turn all of those symbols into groups. That's okay. We're going to ungroup everything. So Command Shift G or Control Shift G. And you're going to see that all those groups are then curves. So if you had multiple shapes in your symbol, it would then be multiple shapes in the group. When you ungrouped it, you then just have all those multiple shapes loose. So that's something to bear in mind if you're doing something that's much more complex. So I'm going to weld those together. And we have our snowflake. But now let's make it a little bit more interesting, because how often when the snow is falling do you see a snowflake that is perfectly straight and in front of you? Let's give it a bit more interest, shall we? So down at the bottom of the layers palette you have a new button, and this is the fun one. So this is your warp options. So if we click on that, you're going to see that it comes up with a few different options. So you've got mesh, quad, perspective, arc, both vertical and horizontal, bend, vertical and horizontal, fisheye and twist. So twist isn't going to really suit our snowflake much, unless you want to make it look like it's spinning. Fisheye might work, but first of all let's go to perspective. So it's going to give you these handles at the corner of the bounding box. That's the box that goes around the outside of your shape. And we're going to be able to go and give it a little tweak. So you can go mad here if you want, or we can be a bit more sensible. So typically with perspective, what you're going to want to do is work in pairs. So in this case, the two left nodes are trying to be an equal amount of distortion, and the two right are trying to be equal. And it's just going to make things look a little better. Like so. Now, this is totally non-destructive, so at some point you decide that you don't want that warp, or if you need to get that symbol back for something else, then you can do. And we can create that as a symbol with the warp, and you can see it says there, it's a warp group. Brilliant. So far so good. Now, let's uncover my plate. So I want to create a border design. Now, you could do a lovely repeat design and have that going around nice and evenly, but again, I think for this one I'm going to go with something a little different. So I'm going to rotate my snowflake like so, and let's duplicate that, and I'm going to twist it. Okay, so now I can duplicate it again using Command and J, and it's going to apply that same amount of twist, and again and again. Brilliant, nice and easy. So now we've got our snowflakes there, and they're kind of in the round, and we can actually go, okay, it just needs to be a little bit bigger for our saucer or side plate. And we're going to centre that up a bit like so, and then we have the start of a design. So already we've kind of used the warp feature to distort a shape, both for graphical effect, but also for the purpose of going around our 3D object. So let's bring in another symbol. Okay, and I'm going to detach it. So if I go back in here, I can actually get back to the original curve before the warp was put onto it, which is really fun, because then we can go, okay, we can change this a little bit. Now bear in mind, everything that you do, you're going to have to replicate time and again as you go round. So keep something nice and simple. So it might be that we just lose one of the inside arrows. And we'll just take out those nodes. Now, it can be a bit tricky to see, but there's a new view option when you're struggling. It's going to help you. And it's called X-ray. So when you're struggling with something, you can go to that, and it's going to kind of break down your layers for you. So we have a new snowflake, and we can create that as a symbol. I'm going to make that smaller, but when we do that, make sure that you're inside your symbol so that we're shrinking that symbol down rather than just the container for that symbol. Okay, so bring that right down in here. Like so. So now we can apply a different warp to it. And let's go for a twist, just to show you what it does. So, as you can see, it's going to take your inside nodes and it's going to rotate them so that you get this kind of twist action. It looks kind of cool, so let's go with it. And we don't want to go too much smaller because otherwise our design is going to start losing a little bit of clarity. About there. Will do. And we can pop that there. And again, we can use our Alt click drag to do a duplicate. And we can go again. Now this time, because we haven't done that rotation, it's going to think that you want to put them in a straight line. So that is where your rotation is going to be key. And if we go for Command J, this time it's trying to do what it thinks is where you're going to go next. So there we go. Looking pretty good. And you can do some little circles and things for things that are in the distance if you want to. So let me just pop back overhead for a moment just so I can see if there is any chat. Hi Delcy. So how are you all doing so far? Have I lost anyone yet? And Delcy, welcome to the discount code as well. So that is applicable on machines, consumables, but not on anything that's in the clearance. So just give me a moment in case you want to put up any questions. You're liking the new warping ideas. They are cool. They are cool, and I did put up a post that has my name, and I did a design with that and actually went into warping the text and things. It's a really fun idea to have a play with. So let's go back to it. So back on display, and we've got our plate looking good. But I want to put a bit of personalisation on it, so down at the bottom you have two options for text as usual. You have your artistic and your frame. Now because we want to work with a single line of text that we want to warp and play with, you're going to go for artistic. So it's important that I say that for what I'm going to do, it must be artistic text, it can't be frame text. You're going to click on the map, and then you are going to type your word. So that could be your name. Nice and simple, Natalie. And we're going to scale that up. So not too bad, but it could do with curving around the surface a little bit. So what can we do? So let's get my circle, and I am going to duplicate it, so Command and J, and then we're going to go to our contour tool, which made me have a little bit of a smile to myself, because when they launched the contour tool it didn't have its own shortcut, and I gave it a personalised shortcut of O. So when the new one came out and it had my shortcut on it, it's like, somebody's been listening to me. So let's bring our curve inwards, and I'm going to bring it in so that it's going to be sitting around our snowflakes. Now if you have a name that has a descender, so for example a G or a Y, then you are going to want to bring that in a bit more to where the centre of your snowflakes will be, so that you can kind of have room for that descender to sit in. But I'm lucky in that I don't have any, so I can just go to that outside line. So Carol, you would be alright. Tracy on the other hand would have to go to that middle line. Okay, so with that done, we can go back to our artistic text tool, and occasionally I know what I need to do next. Bake it. Important step, that bake your offset, and it's going to say curve down here, and that's important. So when we hover over a path, you're going to see that your artistic text tool is going to change slightly, and you're going to have a T with a squiggle underneath it, and that's saying that you're going to put your type on a path, and you're just going to click. And again, we will just type away. There we go. So we want to get it so that it is up the right way. Now let's make it nice and big. Not that big. Okay. So remember how I was saying about if you do text on a curved surface like a bauble, it can kind of push in together, and we can then go, actually we need to actually get that bit more spaced out. We can do that now. So in your Windows palette, go down to text, and you're going to go to character, which is another bit of a change. So basically they've collapsed all the text tools together, which is good. Now we want to add a bit of space between our characters, so we can go okay, because that's curving as a U, we're going to want to go upwards. Now if it was curving like an N, you'd actually want to take your character spacing to a negative to avoid having like big gaps. Now we can worry about the font. So let's go for something that's going to have a little bit that we can play with. So if you want to do a fun design, typically a scripty font is going to give you more options. So let's have a look. Window, text, and into the glyph. And you're going to want to match that to the font that you have currently selected. So rather than scroll down, just type it in and off you go. Chocolate sprinkle. Now let's see if we have any alternates that we can use. We do have some. So if we have a look at the capital N's, there's just one of those. So there's nothing fancy with that. But sometimes you'll find that you'll have 2 or 3 different options. It tends to be the more you pay for a font, the more alternates you will have, just obviously because of the amount of work that it takes to do them. So let's go for E with a squiggle at the end of it. So we have a squiggle there, like so. Now if you've done this and suddenly you're thinking, oh, but now my Y or my G, or in this case the N is off the bottom, what can I do? You can use your baseline to actually adjust that. So if I select all my text, let's adjust that baseline. I'm going to bring that in. Now that is starting to look a bit close and a bit cramped. So if we go back to our character palette, we can sort that out. So let's go character, and we're going to sort out that spacing. Okay. Now I'm just going to reduce that size a bit because we still can't get it quite where we want to. And we need it a bit bigger, so let's try 70. That's better. So for your script font, just check to see that your tail's actually merged into this. One here that is just a little bit not quite where it should be. So I'm just going to reduce that very slightly to, let's say 68, and see if we can just nudge that in. Is it 6? No, not 6. 6. There we go. That's better. Okay, so at this point you might be going, okay, but that's not centered, so we can center it. And we can still baseline shift it if we want to. Okay. Now, if you want to be all boring like that and go, okay, that's enough, that is absolutely fine. But if you want to do something with warping, and you don't want to do a whole word, because you can do the whole word and that's fine, and it will do it non-destructively, you keep your font and everything, brilliant. But if you want to do individual characters, you're going to want to convert it to curves. And I'm also going to ungroup it for now, just so that I can access the individual bits and pieces. So my N is just sitting too close to that edge for me, so I'm just going to move it. Okay, so the T could look a bit more fun. So let's see, if we go to mesh, it's going to put a grid over the top of our character, and we're going to be able to go, actually, I'm going to select all of these points. So I'm just pressing and holding shift and selecting those at once, and I can drag it up and go, okay, I want that bit there. Then on the next row we're going to do the same again, so select them all, drag them up, and we're going to make our T kind of stretch. Okay, and like so. Now if you want to, you could try and do the cross of the T to make it kind of scale and go bigger, but what I'm going to do instead is, let's see if we can get our pen tool and do it instead. So we want to kind of match this flick here, and I'm going to go around like that, like so, and that's going to give us the start of our curve. Now if we go into our stroke, so you're going to see that the stroke menu looks pretty similar, and we're going to want to set our stroke width to the widest point we need it, so we're trying to match this point here. So far so good. Then to get the curve, we're going to use our pressure, so we're going to have one point up here that is full, but the other point we can take down. So press and hold Alt, click and drag to bring it down, and we're going to take that right down to match the thinnest part of our text, like so. Okay, so I'm going to move that slightly, and let's just zoom in. Now if you can see that you've got a little bit of that across that T showing, we're going to go back into our warp, so like so. We're going to select our dots, and we're going to nudge that up very slightly, and we can take our top and just nudge that down, and it's just going to tuck the cross of the T beneath our new swoosh that we've done. Now I'm going to go to layer and expand stroke, so that we have that as a shape, so that then if we want to, we can go and warp that bit more too. So let's go and bend it horizontal. So I'm going to go like that, nudge that back that way, and click off. So I'm quite happy with that. And let's just look at this warp here. So we've got a bit of an issue here where our tail's kind of sticking out a bit. If that's okay, we can just pull this one node out, and we can tweak it back underneath. And you can do the same for all those letters. So if you're not happy where your tails are, you can still go back through and manipulate it just using your walk tools. Like so. So then when you're happy with all of that, you can select it all. And because we want to cut it as one piece, we can then weld it. Oh, there's always one, isn't there? It's, yeah. From there and weld. No, it's going to be naughty tea. So, if that happens, you just need to convert it to curve. So there, and it goes like that. There we go. And then we can weld. Now, because it's a group, just make sure that you can group it, because otherwise you're not going to be able to weld like so. And make sure that you get across your T2. So I'm going to need to do the same to that, because we also applied walk to that. So just convert to curves already. Okay, fine. Weld it then. Oh no. Trying to weld it to the wrong width, that won't help. That won't help. There we go. Well, why is it having a moment now? Regrouped it, that's why. There we go. Come on. Yeah, no, you want to. I can tell you're hovering in. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Yeah? You don't need me? No? You're all done?
Just waiting.
Ah. Okay. So, with that all done, I'm happy. Let's just nudge that up. And we can get rid of our text down here. So, tell you what, as you're hearing it, what random word shall I play with? Just pick one.
Science.
It's a Christmas plate.
It isn't a random word. You didn't say it had to be Christmas related.
I'll go Christmas.
That's not random.
So, you're going to see that straight away it's picked up from the last text that you typed. So, if you are going to be doing multiples, so let's say you've got a Natalie plate and an Ian plate, then it's going to remember what you used last. But then you can default back to what you needed to. So, I'm just going to go... what should I go for? I want a different font as well. Yeah, let's go cupcake. Yeah, means we did it last week, didn't we? So cupcake. We're going to set our character spacing to nothing. So that's going to pull that up. Now, let's show you how walk can work on here. So let's go to quad. And quad's a nice, easy one to get started with. So if you just want to play, start off with quad, because it just gives you the four handles, and we can play like so. We can curve it. So it's also a good one to play with if you want to make it fit something. So I want to go over here, that curve, and over here. Thank you. And you'll see that when you add a new point, it's going to basically put in like a little grid. That's okay, because then we can put another one in over here, and we can twist that down there and down there, so that we can start to make it do a bit of a wave. And the handles work the same way as when we're designing, so that you get used to how you're setting these up. So let's just stretch out our Christmas here because it's looking a little bit compressed. And we can put in a new point. And then let's straighten that up a bit. And that one there. Like so. So you can have your text going on a flowing path, but the difference between that and text on a path is that actually you can make things go bigger when they're up and smaller when they're down, and bigger at the end, so that you're kind of starting to emphasize the waves. So one of the posts the other day was about how can you do it so that you have a straight line at the top and a wave at the bottom. That's the way you do it. So you would go into quad mode and then add your points and stretch accordingly. So with that done, we're going to go to File and we're going to go to Export, and we are going to see quite a big difference in the export box. So if we go to SVG, you are going to have your standard options, but it hasn't imported our scan and cut option. So we are going to need to create one. So remember how I said it's really important that the first document you do has the right DPI. This is where it's going to come in. So I'm going to type 96, export text as curves, untick set view box, and flatten your transforms. So that means that if there's a warp there that you haven't converted, such as the snowflakes around the outside, it's going to flatten that for you so that you're going to be good to go. And make sure that you rasterize nothing. So even though you end up having to set a DPI there, all that's going to control really is the size that it comes into canvas. Then on the little 3 lines here, we can click and create a preset, and we can call that scan and cut. Okay. And let's go to export. And we can call it side plate. I'm just going to stick that on my desktop for now, I think. And if we go in there, there's a folder called Stream that I can use. New folder. Vinyl side plate. In there. Side plate and save. And also, before you go any further, just do a save as. And we can save it to the same folder with the same name just by clicking on our SVG. Is that usually an issue? No. But there you go. It's a random one on obviously on the Mac, because this is like the first time it's been installed, just so that I can show you the initial setup. So there we go. And we can cut that as normal and apply it. So let me know if you would like me to do that for you, or if you're happy for me to just post a photo. And let's pop back overhead. Mac Streamlabs. Okay, so any questions on Affinity V2? Obviously it is brand new, and I've used most of the new features, so I will be doing a breakdown on the shape builder tool next week.
What does it say in the export box, please, Nat?
Okay, I can go back and show you that. So, yeah, we'll do it. There we go. So back to display. So in the export box, you can use the same settings as from version 1. So if you have bought the Design with Vectors book and you're in that group, there is a file in there with the original V1 settings for the silhouette, the cricket, the scan and cut, for importing it into Illustrator, for importing it to shortcuts a lot and things like that, so that you're keeping your sizing standard. Now, if you don't have access to that, then very roughly, in terms of the set view box, it's usually better to leave that unchecked for scan and cut, but I think off the top of my head you have to check it for cricket, but I could be wrong. I haven't set those up just yet on this one, but yeah, the important one is to unset that view box, so there should be no tick next to it. Oddly enough, when you go online, sometimes it can be the other way around. It prefers it on to having it off, but stick to having it switched off and use the desktop version anyway. And feel free to take a screenshot while that's up there. And we can head back. So, as it's already exported, I'm going to cancel that. And let's go back to Streamlabs. Meant the pop-up that came up, was it an error? That was when it did a save as, so it was basically, obviously, for whatever reason on this one, it has a glitch, where basically, because you did a save as, and the file was no longer known as untitled, it threw a bit of a wobbly. But then you can open the saved version anyway, so it's fine. It's fine, and it hasn't been reported anywhere else, so I'm going to say that that is a quirk on my Mac, because I didn't have that issue on my MacBook at all, so it's very weird, because it's exactly the same software installed on two different computers, and they both act very differently, so it could be because it imported the settings from version 1, because the MacBook didn't do that.
Well, we.
Do we recommend version 2? Yes, we do. But in terms of what I recommend you do with version 2, is I actually recommend going for the universal license. So long as you have an iPad. I'll qualify that. As long as you have an iPad, the universal license is the best way to go, because that gives you the iPad apps, the Windows apps, and the Mac apps, and they almost talk to one another. Almost.
But they've made a lot of improvements, haven't they, with version?
Yeah. Yeah, the iPad versions are like massively different. So I was due to teach a class on Affinity Designer, and what I'm going to say to people is, do you want to do version 1 or version 2, because they are very different beasts. If you don't have an iPad, then what I would suggest is at least upgrading Designer. So if you have Designer and Photo but you're not using Photo a lot, then definitely upgrade your Designer. If you're using Photo a lot as well as using Designer, then look at doing both, because you're going to find they will like to talk to each other much better.
£35,
Yeah, they're about £35 per app to do them individually. It's about, what, 80 to do all three?
Yeah.
Well, I say all three, but technically it's all 9.
Yeah, because it's
But yes, I would definitely recommend V2 for what we do, because you've got that warp feature. The only thing it doesn't do yet is trace. But to be honest, there's been a bit of discussion about auto tracing anyway, and whether it's a feature that actually we should be encouraging or not, because it should be that you should have that confidence of drawing with the vectors that you can actually go ding 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 ding, and you get that by practicing. It's just by sheer amount of practice and getting the hang of where the handles go. But if you want to see that particular conversation, that is only over on the Affinity Designer group on Facebook, which is very good as a resource, and you'll find some very helpful people in there, including me. So I think for today I'm going to leave it there, and I'm just going to cut this off screen just because of time, and then you can see how the set looks when it's all done. So take care for now, and I look forward to seeing you. I'm trying to remember. Maybe Wednesday, maybe Friday. Keep an eye on the schedule listings as well, because I am doing events, and there may be a familiar face that is coming up to do a live too. So, in the meantime, don't forget to use the discount if you want to. So over on Craft Store Direct. And as always, if you're looking for something in particular, just drop me a message and I can generally put you in the right direction. Take care, and I'll see you later in the week. Bye for now.